Hello. Hello to all of you who have come today to the exhibit with Billy Ireland. And this is the Write It Down, Draw It Out exhibit. The comics of, that's me, Carol Tyler. I'm giving you a tour. So come on in, let's take a look. Start with this. It's a cool little booklet I made that helps you as you go along around the gallery to kind of features everything that we've got going. So this exhibit is, I'm old enough to be able to say it's a retrospective. I've spent 4 or 5 decades, I don't know, forever doing comics. And so let me walk you through the timeline of my career. So, hello again. Here we are inside the gallery. We're going to start with just kind of look at the whole thing and take that camera and go around and look at how big and wonderful this space is. So many things going on, other exhibits. So it's like, how do you start to talk about your work? Because for most of us, anybody who does comics, drawing, anything, we all scrawl as kids and we find ourselves in art school maybe, which was my case. I went to art school. Actually, it started when I was, we'll get to that over there. We're gonna start here. Because one of the first things that you learn is that if you're going to make art, and you don't quite know what you want to do, you start with a self-portrait. So I've got a whole wall of self-portraits here from various points in my career. This one here is from 1978. 10 years later, I do that one. My mom said, "You don't look like that." Here's one where I splotched out myself with ink because I had been transitioning from using paint to inks. This is something from a comic bio page. This is a portrait of me, Justin, Julia, our doggy, and looking at the letter T. We lived in California, and this is the most recent. I mean, I do these a lot, but this is what's on display. This one was out at the farm. This was blowing across the yard, the big expanse out there, this thing. And I thought it looked like my head. And it was the day that I had cried so much that the sunblock on my face, the tears had made lines, and I had sunburn lines on the places where the tears had been running down my face. So I added this. This is what they tie up hay with. So that's where that self-portrait came from. Okay. And then this, of course, is the big head here with the thoughts and the balloons up at the top. All of this, this specific plywood came from an exhibit I had in 2016 in Cincinnati for showing me my Soldier's Heart artwork. We hung it up really high so we wouldn't have to frame anything. And then there was another room, and this portrait went around a doorway that you could walk through. And when you walk through there, you could take a look at all this stuff that belonged to my dad, things that inspired me, and just kind of a workshop setting. So what I wanted to do here with the write it down, draw it out, because at a certain point it went from being an art girl to being a comics person. And in the display here, what you see is I'm presenting myself as that entity that does that. Start with a self-portrait if you don't know what you want to do. Okay. I did a lot of that, but what came to mind when getting ready to talk about this was this drawing I did in college when I was in this phase here, being an art girl. We had to go home and do a still life. And if you'll see there, I had a pair of sunglasses, this was the 70s, so these were like campy 60s glasses, you know, that went to a point. They had this doodad thing on the top. And I remember that this was the jumping off point for all of this artwork that I've done for the last 50 years. How is that? Because instead of drawing like a bowl or something, I took something personal. And it really clicked with me that everything I did could be related to something of personal interest. So I wanted to take that direction. I took all these art supplies here. This is stuff I've had from back in the day and everything, you know. At the same time I was becoming a fine artist, I was also, we learned in school, you write down, you keep a log in your painting studio, you write down what your moves are, you know. I had an abstract expressions teacher, that was the kind of the plan. And so a lot of these journals down here, it's painting notes and things that I had to, you had to justify what you were doing, 10 color field paintings, what is the rationale? And I'd write all this formal stuff down. But as I was I went back reading these stuff for the show, I'm looking at the formal stuff, and it'll say like, the way the picture plane tilts to the back, and then the integrated linear elements work their way through. I hope I'm not pregnant. And then I added a blue color field, and it's like, what was that? I was using that personal, and then finally it just became, you know what? I just want to express myself and talk about my life and talk about the things that matter to me, like that jumped out when I did that formal drawing. It turned out to be one pair of sunglasses, and it wasn't just that I was wearing sunglasses. It was that I was being a cool person with sunglasses. Here's the pair I wore when I moved to New York City. This was the de rigueur of the time, and then I picked up this scarf on the streets. Paid somebody a couple of bucks in Manhattan. We all walked around looking like this, not smiling, being art students, and filling up these books. You see how I have it written here? Fall 82 Syracuse, that's went to grad school. All of this. Love begins in San Francisco, that's when I met Justin. And they're dated. All of this, except for that was high school. Zero in on that a second. You know what? Don't listen to the teacher. Take your assignment notebook and that really cool new technology, fountain pen, and learn more about letter forms. So what we did at the exhibit, we put it in this case, which is from my house here, and then we scanned many pages from some of the journals. This one says 1981. I can't read that. Wait, let me put on my other glasses. Are you guys still with me? Mm-hmm. Stretching in the kitchen, knowing how beautiful my body is becoming, as it ages, and I keep it flexible and ready for the movement, that my efforts are sensitivity to the machinery of my future, courted by the words and music of John Lennon's Julia. Glimmering calls me, and then I ended up having a baby and calling her Julia. 4 years later. Anyway, let's go over to here because this is kind of where we're headed. Being the cool New Yorker type, of course I had a lot of people talking about comics and how that was kind of the vanguard hippie, or not, the hipster vanguard movement was to look at comics. All right, so I started doing stuff. Like this was somebody's tattoo walking by, and I drew that, and then I decided to make a comic out of it, and so that was like my little mini comic from 1983. And then over here is a drawing or a photo of a sequence of paintings I did. So I was taking personal stories, because my work always told stories. I was taking the personal stories and turning them into sequential images. In fact, I had this one, I used to carry around a purse, and I had copies of my hair that I'd put on telephone poles on the Lower East Side. And then I also had 2 panels in there that told a story. They were painted on wood, and I would hang them in different places. Take a picture. This was the very first thing I ever had published in 1977. It was in the campus, Middle Tennessee State University campus publication. And this was shocking because I actually added words and images to a picture, which was forbidden back then because it was all supposed to be abstract. Anyway. There you go. Oh, what happened? What did I do? Oh, 1982, I went out to San Francisco to meet the guy who wrote the comic, Binky Brown Meets the Holy Virgin Mary. And I was like, what? That guy, he was telling a story flat out without these vague references I was making in my abstracty pictures. So I had to meet him. I went out to see my roommate, and we fell in love. There's pictures of me wearing this. This is my jacket from the time, from my hipster New York era. We hit it off, and everything you see here was drawings that try to define and describe what that was like to be with Justin. Not this set so much. This set here is old. 1973, Stoner, Carol Tyler. I want to draw comics like those underground people. Stoned, I was stoned. Okay, we did that back then. The weed was different. This here was something very mild. This was an attempt at, between meeting Justin, I thought I'd make a character, I developed some of that. This was my first attempt at doing a full page. I never inked it, I just did me and Justin out there. And if you'll notice, I'm not wearing sunglasses in California yet. It seems counterintuitive, but there was no need to. I was so in love and we were locked in. Okay, so now all of this, what I did was move us from living in, I grew up in Chicago, went to Tennessee for college, that's where my mom was from, learned about art, changed from being a fine artist into a narrative artist, and the fuel was Justin. He was a model. Okay. This was the first really legit, let's say. I mean, that one was legit, that's true, but Weirdo magazine, Robert Crumb's Weirdo, was a very popular magazine back in the 80s. And I got a piece published in that, and it was wildly popular. Everyone loved it, which was shocking to me because there was no Facebook, no connecting in that way. And so it was like, people like my work? Wow, I can't believe it. And it turned out that I had a knack for storytelling. And so now I had to develop that. This was so different than just smearing paint on a canvas. Learning the trade required having an Ames lettering guide, using a proportion wheel. Here's some rags I used. You know, you dip your pen, you put the rags on there. But I was busy. This is a story about my childhood. So I was not in the New York state of mind I was now. Mom. I was mommy. And Mom, as you see in the big head portrait over there, was most of what I spent my life doing. dutifully taking care of the needs of others while trying to squeeze in doing comics. And what you see here is my subjects. The subject matter became Justin and Julia. And for example, that's I made a birthday cake for Justin. There's Julia showing off the zucchini she grew with the big sunflowers. And here's a drawing of her and a story about that. Here's a story about Julia growing up. This is a story about our family again. And these were getting published in magazines of the day. Weirdo, Drawn and Quarterly, things like that. This is my motherhood, raw and unabashed explanation about how hard it was. It really did a number on the body, and it was a lot of work. It's not for the faint of heart. I called this, that over there says early varieties, this is mid-seasonal, this is full bloomers, because this first set from the 80s through the 2000, I would say, is the scope of my book, Late Bloomer. It also refers to the beginnings of the career. This refers to just getting the work done while I was being a mom and working at the museum and the different things I had to do, referring to stories from my past. This was a roommate story. This was a true story from when I worked at this bookstore and had bad insomnia and so on. So everything here, it got to be, this is a 3-page story. This is a 6-page story. I got to where I could really do long form stories. This one was 10. This one was, that was 10. This was 8, so on. This is the cover. I really wanted to crank it out. But the great sacrifice I had to make was that, juggling work, raising a kid, trying to be a married, loving woman, and do comics. It was hard. How can I get more money? Oh, you know what I think I'll do? I'll try to get a weekly. The thing at the time to do was to get it in the weekly papers. Remember, younger people, there was none of this connectivity. This would not have been possible. There would have been a big camera and a crew here if we were going to do this on film. So it's amazing, but it's also the way to try to make money was to try to get a daily or a weekly syndicated strip. So I came up with some ideas. This is my rejection letter from J. Kennedy at Esquire. There's other rejection letters that I can't find. It's in my stuff. There's an awful lot of stuff, but this was some of the stuff that I tried to put together. There was a series going to be called Monikers, based on kid names. This was letters to my sister. And I was told by more than one paper that they already had a girl cartoonist. They weren't going to fill their page with ladies. They had one, that's enough. So this enterprise didn't happen. Oh, it's more colorful. Why is it more colorful over here? I'll tell you why. Technology, the drum scanner. You could take artwork and now they would put it through a thing, and so they could fully scan watercolors, which was incredible, or colored ink, whereas before we had to do separation of color. It was cost prohibitive. So a lot of my earliest work is black and white. But as you can see here, wow, the painter in me thought, wow, I get to come out here and work my palette again. I have a real good sense of color. This is a blow-up of the inside front cover of the book Late Bloomer. Here's the cover. It's different from the cover that's printed. That's the other thing I found out. I have a very delicate way of putting color in, but printing can kind of make it harsh. So I just have to watch out for that. This is the last story in the Outrage, the book called The Outrage, or the book called Late Bloomer. This was the last story of that, and it's featured heavily in the movie Married to Comics. But this is a story about trouble, the troubles I encountered early on in my marriage and how it affected and impacted my relationship and my work. But every single stroke, pen stroke in this is color. There was no more black ink. You didn't have to use just black ink. You can see here, I'd mix up little color with ink. I'd mix up little color palettes and then pop them open. I use this brush here. Here's a eraser shield because I'd like to get in there, maybe not smear things. That's to stir black ink. What's it doing here? But if you look at this one, that's all color. All the lines, even the panels are color. And I tried to do it, looks like it's part of a notebook. See the blue lines and then the orange. I'd like to tell the viewers, if you have a question, just ask. I'd be happy to stop and answer a question. The thing about comics that I found is I didn't like the rigidity that, like, you know, you had to have a splash panel and then everything had to follow along. I was always trying to figure out how to play with sequence and how to make the story pliable and work from within. So in this case, I was asked to do a 2-pager. I thought, what happens if I put the splash panel on the bottom? So that's what this is. And it's a full color story about being at my grandparents', and it was, I'm saying it's quiet, and my grandparents are like, yep, sure is. I mean, they really did live out in the middle of nowhere. It was great. But then all these bug noises started, and I noticed that all the noises out in the country, I say, country music. Quiet my foot, it's country music. And my grandpa says, hey, that's a good idea, Carolyn. We could do for some country music. Go in there and fire up the old Victrola. And Granny says, it's been too awful quiet. So I put on the Victrola, and their idea of country music was John Philip Sousa playing Stars and Stripes Forever. So imagine that blaring from this little cabin. And I wrote down here, this piece of heaven's gone. I'm sure you know the tune. They pushed the old folks out to bring the new road through. So this was right before they lost their house to a road. Makes it even sweeter. This is something I did called My American Labels, and each one of these is a can label. You can see that. Turn it around, and this is an interactive. People can pick them up and see the images. I was just on that porch today. Anyway, there was the theme was patriotism or something. I thought, what's more patriotic looking than a can label from the Central Valley of California? There's a lot of things, but now we're going to move across here. I'm going to focus on. We're going to move to here. I'd love to sit in this chair. Does anybody have any questions?
Just lots of comments on how spectacular the show looks, how beautiful your work is, how much they love Late Bloomer, and the overall presentation.
All right. And I drill all of that stuff in this chair. And you'll see this chair in lots of comics. This was my family's chair, belonged to my grandmother. We had the country grand folks. And then we had the snooty grand folks over there. But I've got a drawing somewhere. My dad's sitting in this chair talking about, he came home from work and I show him sitting there like this, and it's the day he come home from work, and it's like, what's the matter? My mom was talking to him. And he'd just seen, they were digging a ditch. He was a pipe fitter, digging a ditch, and he saw a guy get buried alive. So, sitting in his chair after work telling Mom while she's fixing supper, and I just happened to catch that. but just the way it makes little noises and sounds. And I've seen it. I saw it at my grandmother's house. My grandmother there, Mrs. Kite. You'll see it. That chair might even be in that comic. I haven't checked, but it shows up a lot. So I felt like it needed to be. You know, I love it. I love these curves. You know what the other thing is? I love curves, and it's in all this work. You know, I really love the order and the architecture and the structure of comics and comic pages and the panels. But I've really been cutting loose and doing things with upsetting that, but still maintaining the sense of continuity of the story and the sequence. Okay, we're moving along. Now we're in this area called trauma and trouble. Because, as I said before, in my personal life, you know, when I saw this, I made that sunglass drawing, it was like, wow, I can connect. Yes, give me that thing. I brought more sunglasses. I didn't really wear them in California. But when I came to Ohio in 1997, I'm gonna hold these. I started realizing that I'd been missing my sunglass life in Ohio. I like this pair. A lot of these things I had to wear. How about this pair? There's a lot of pictures of me in that one. I'm showing you this because I was in Ohio, in southwest Ohio, and my parents moved to southwest Indiana. This was huge for me because when we lived in California, my parents were thousands of miles away, and I was very close to them. A lot of this early work and, you know, talks about stories and memories of being with them. I just always found them fascinating. They were both kind of kooky. But when I moved to Ohio and I would drive over to help take care of them, I realized that there were some problems, things that they hadn't talked about. Especially when my dad called up one day and started talking about war, and especially when my mom suddenly told me out of the blue, finally, what had happened to my sister Anne, her first child, with my dad. And so this here, this story here, the Hannah story, is just a fragment. A lot of this stuff, we couldn't put it all on the wall. There's no museum big enough. But this story here, I did in 1993, 94. And it's about how my parents, I have to show them in a look back. I had to show her in the present talking to me and juggle all of these kind of factors of looking back and now. How do you convey that? So I had a language set up where, you know, the wiggle edges have to do with the old photograph. The old photographs always had that kind of an edge. But I used this stark, modern thing, band across here for the aspect of her saying, she's dead. There, I said it. Precious dear, my aunt. So that moves quicker than a look back, storytelling type look back, setting the stage for this moment that comes up. We had been going through her stuff. She had this box of stuff. They were downsizing. She could not part with it, nor did she want to open it. So when I opened it, what I encountered was beautiful baby cards and precious things, followed by sympathy cards. And that's over here. Oh, we have well, that's me. That's my old phone. I'm supposed to take a medicine right now, but I'm gonna say no. Bye. Yeah. Okay. Technical difficulties at the very prime moment of telling you about my sister Anne, a lovely child. I'm so proud to have a sister that I never met. But this is some of the artifacts from that time when you see the baby cards and you see the sympathy cards. What happened what happened. Let's go over here. What happened was, Dad went to war. My mom had to live with the parents, his parents. Dad come home from war. What a lovely scene, huh? Sugar. They call kissing each other sugar. I have a reason for saying that now. So this one day, my sister went to help Mom. She had something boiling on the stove. She grabbed the pot, burned her, scalded her. And as I've said before, in drawing this with a limited palette, it was like, how can I show the burn, the moment of being burned? And so I mixed up a little color, but I was crying so hard that my tears were dropping on this. I was taking this tissue and I was dabbing it with the tissue, and it was like, that's burn. That's burn. So I really connected with her because of being because of being a mom with really not a lot of help. When we lived in California, Justin was always busy. I really connected with that moment when you've got a terrible situation and there's nobody to help, and she had no phone, nobody was around, no car, her husband was at work, and she had this scalded child. So they had her finally got her to the hospital. They reassured her to go home, everything was going to be fine. And then when they went to pick her up, they waved bye-bye. We keep her overnight for observation. Next morning, they come in to pick her up, and the lady says, oh, we have her listed as deceased. That's how my parents found out that they'd lost their child. And again, I defaulted in the moment of stark realization to these methods that I picked up as an abstract artist. Kind of worked that in. Moving on. So I had sunglasses. Let's go back to that prop. Because I had to run back and forth. My parents moved here. My dad called up and talked about World War II. I got to get that down. Get in the truck, drive, go see them, put my little camera, get the information, get everything I needed. I realized that they were really, she was just coming to terms with her loss of her child. He had started to open up, and it was answering a bunch of questions for me about why was he crabby, why was life the way it was when I was growing up? Why was he always busy, my dad? Building stuff and over the top, crazy projects. A lot of times people do that because they don't want to think about what's going on down deep inside. So at that time, my trauma was that Justin and I had kind of had a hiccup, our marriage. He had to go over there for a while, and I ended up coming here, and then he came here, and we finally put our lives back together, but it was not easy. So we had trouble. While my dad is telling me all about what happened in World War II to him, but he can only go so far. So let's go, come on, Dad, we're going to go look up your records. We're going to go to Washington, D.C., we're going to go to St. Louis, we're going wherever, because I couldn't find his records. He wanted to know. And all I had for evidence to tell a story of this magnitude was some of the stuff that he'd left behind, that he had in his stuff. So he had medals, he had patches, here's his army flashlight, there's his aviator glasses, and so on. But he, like my mom, was unable to fill in all the gaps. I found out a lot of stuff I had to fill in gaps with my mom, even though she told me how they found out that Ann died. It wasn't from burns, but hospital neglect. I had to call the hospital and try to figure out where were the records that by the next day had gone missing. Same thing with Dad here. Where are your records? Well, we don't know. I go to St. Louis, we go everywhere. We don't have any records on Chuck Tyler because he had a...
We have a question.
Yes.
Since you're talking about Soldier's Heart, if you can talk about the importance of maps in Soldier's Heart, and you'll never know.
Okay. It all has to do with where are you? What is the sense of place? I've been talking about, I lived in New York, grew up in Illinois, we lived in California, I was here when I did this. And that is so important to figure out because that's your plan forward. And in Soldier's Heart, I do have several maps, and I did refer to official Army maps to try to look and figure out where Dad was, because he'd say, it was muddy, it was hilly. And it's like, well, you were in Italy, where were you? Well, we stopped in Naples. I said, Naples, port is over on the ocean, Dad. Where's this mud and rain? It turned out that they went up through central Italy. And, you know, I'd have to get out some maps and figure out and throw some town names. Trying to get information out of him, I had to go through a different method other than maps, which I used a lot. And I did put some maps in the book. And I also made an effort to show the traveling. That's why I show the sunglasses. Because we were constantly, I have to drive over there and I'd think about what I was going to ask them. And I'd come home with all this information. It's in the story. There's this constant going back. We're back. Are you guys unfrozen? Let us know. You're frozen. We're not frozen. Are we here? Are we back? Is it saying we're back? Let's take a moment to look at my button. What does it say? Aging is so cool, everybody's doing it. Ah. All right. 5 main characters, we went over that. Daughter in crisis, narrator. I'm wearing the jacket with the X on the back. This was Dad's M1 liner from, that's all he had left from the war, and I talk about that in the book. There he is. There's Justin, mired in his difficulties, and my mom. So what I was trying to say is having to meld together the incredible story that my dad we were uncovering about his service, my mom finally coming to terms with what happened in her life, and trying to fold those together with my own personal turmoil, trying to put my marriage back together and make our family whole again, because it really rocked all of us. This is how I like to incorporate things in my work. Here I am asking my stroke mom to do a page for the book, because she's crafty, she's got talent. In her generation wasn't allowed to do what I do. So this was my chance to say, hey, come on, let's do this. And she said, what is that you want me to draw? It's like, okay, and I'm trying to show how this left side is non-existent for her. And show her shaky hand. It's like, it's just a page. It's draw something, anything that matters to you. And so I show her how her head is half kind of cold. I show it bluish. And she said, I gave her the tools, materials, this is what you wanted. And it says, out of war came my children. And this is the drawing she did. So this is, when she started to talk about Anne, she realized and started saying, for years and years and years, she said, how many kids you got? 4. But once she accepted that Anne was gone through her prayer group and she told me about it, she started talking about having 5 children, which was accurate. So if you'll notice in this 1943, which was the biggest year of her life, she said, was the year she married Dad, World War II. And here's the kids, the surviving kids, our birth dates, 1951, 1960, 48, 46. And if you'll notice over here to the left, which is the part of her brain that doesn't work, she has Anne. This is 1944. She's trying to write it. Had a little bit more difficulty. She's got the tears coming out about her daughter Anne. And she told me the book at one point was called You'll Never Know. And she said she wanted me to know it should be I want you to ever know that I love you. See, that's how it goes. I get emotionally invested in this stuff. All right, that's why I wear sunglasses. I went through a flip phase. Clip on. Okay. Dad, I dragged him to the monument in Washington. And this is the moment that we enter the space. If you've ever been to Washington, D.C., to this memorial, it's not a monument, I think it's a memorial. Memorial. Somebody corrected me about that. These elements are not out in the open. They're in these turrets to the left and right. This is the Pacific, this is the Atlantic, and this is a bronze sculpture that exists up in these areas. But when you walk in, you kind of walk down into it and you get this sense of grandeur. It opens up like this. And on the one end is this, and this is all the different states of the Union, and this is memorials, stars for those who have died. This is a fountain. Everything is symbolic. But there were these water features at the memorial. And we walked in, we were so in awe of the largesse of it and the intensity. It's one of the most beautiful experiences I've ever had with an outdoor space. And when we went up, finally went over to the side he was at, Atlantic, you have to walk up into these elements here. But when we got over here, this is lower, there's a picture here of me. I put my hand on his shoulder because he heard the water, he said. He heard the water. And that reminded him. So nice guy took a picture. That's when he lost it, and I have that in the book. Water, the sound of water. So I have no idea what trauma happened near water for him. But it came out here. Two big pages from Soldier's Heart. This one, before there was texting, I drew this. And this shows my sister and my mom and I trying to have a conversation. I made my sister's stuff green. My mom's is red for her red hair, and mine's blue. And we were trying to describe a moment that the car caught on fire. Their car, when they were taking Dad up to chemo or something like that, he had hot wired the ignition and the car caught on fire. We were talking about that. So that's a page from the book. And this is the infamous page 5. I had the start of the book and the rest of the book going, and I kept thinking, page 5, page 5. I want to put in page 5. I don't want to. One morning I woke up, I said, I know exactly what I want to do with page 5. I want to state the thesis of the entire book. So here's Dad putting a piece of plywood. The pages, this is the right side. So there's a page over here, and we read from upper left to lower right. So we go like this when we read a page. So I had that flow into this where he puts the plywood in the truck and then drives it up through the landscape, not past this, all scars. Here's his truck. R, say the cows, visible up in the sky, and then he pulls into the garage. So the page runs your eye this way while giving the message that not all scars are visible. Because what he had was post-traumatic stress that was never diagnosed. Because you didn't do that back in World War II. Guys were not allowed to have that sort of thing. You had to get back in there, forget about it. And so this is the thesis of the book, that his hidden trauma and that what my parents carried around my whole life growing up was covered. Any questions, anybody? Let's get back to the sunglasses. Woo, wait a minute. Let's look at that tornado. Woo. I live in the Midwest. There are lots of tornadoes here. This box is, Dad made this box, and all the pages from Soldier's Heart fit in here. And when I brought this to the attention of Billy Ireland, well, we're going to do this, we're going to make a tornado. Their exhibit team came up with this way to show the pages from this is Dad's narrative. This is the exact narrative from his tour. We have it coming out like a tornado. And it sits in this box on this table. This is another one of those Tyler furniture pieces that I talk about it in the Ephemerata coming up, where Dad had a fit because I took this home. And he accused me of stealing all his stuff and taking furniture out of the house. Said the dying man. Anyway, and this is cool. He made this radio. I love this radio. He made it to fit in one of it in the shop. So look, it's got tubes in the back. All the Chicago radio stations are on this dial here. You can still turn the dial, I think. Still turned. Anyway, he cut that because it had to fit in some place in his workshop up there in Chicago. See his drill holes and all that. My dad was to be admired. Very creative, both of them, my parents. I was lucky. Okay, any questions at this point? No? Come on! All right. So putting this exhibit together meant looking at, we really kind of did it based on books. So that's the Late Bloomers over there. We don't have too much job thing, my very first book. It's awesome, but it's out of print. People still love it. And then we did You'll Never Know, which really turned into Soldier's Heart. And then I've always had various little pieces here and there. This one was in Drawing Power. It was during the Me Too movement. Diane Newman put this together. I've had a lot of help with women stepping forward. I appreciate that. Caitlin, but Aileen was my mentor, and she really liked my work and got me started in Crumb's Weirdo. I've always had people interested and supportive of my work, and the Hannah story that I did there was in Drawn and Quarterly. It was named on the top 100 comics of the 20th century, which I'm very proud of. And Soldier's Heart received a lot of acclaim. It's got a gold medal from the Society of Illustrators, but none of that, I'm working class, none of that sinks in. I just feel like I have to tell a story. I gotta get back to work. I'm just like my dad, I'm driven to do more. Okay, Tyler, here, now I need 5 pages for Weirdo. Okay, Aileen, I'll have them by Friday, no problem. Oh, my dad passed away on a Tuesday, and Fantagraphics says we need a portrait for the cover by Friday. Okay, you got it. Had to come back and do that. So that's what you do. You live at your drawing table and you do comics. The theme here was, Diane said, Me Too. It's about, we all know what Me Too is about. So I decided to do a story about a date rape that I'd forgotten about. Why did I forget about it? I didn't really forget about it, but back when I was young, you didn't discuss such things, stuff that away, the way my parents never talked about their traumas. So I had this guy come at me on a date, and he happened to be one of many Tommies that I was having trouble with during a certain period of my life, a very short period when I lived in Tennessee. All those Tommies, that's what this is. And he was a football guy, so I had myself as a cheerleader. And, here it is. And the color, I like to do this thing with color. The color this is about, everything was rosy. It got kind of warmth of my friends, puke, bile color for the assault. And then if you'll see, it never really kind of ever got back into the same balance of this color. For a while, I got to do a monthly page in the back of Cincinnati Magazine. So they wanted to talk about life on my street. I live in a diverse neighborhood that's got its challenges. But that never stopped me from coming up with a bunch of great stories. I did it for 3 years, and here's some of the pages that we selected to show here that talk about, okay, I'm gonna just tell you. They call me the plant lady on my street because I started these community gardens and I've been used growing tomatoes as currency to build friendships. And so this is about many of those friendships and some of the anecdotal things that happen. There's even a great dog story here with dogs playing poker.
There's some questions about who influenced you, what cartoonists influenced you, and what cartoonists you had, friendships and relationships with. Someone asked in particular about whether or not you were friends with Lee Mars.
No, when I lived in California, I was consumed with duties of motherhood and meeting the needs of the family. We lived in Sacramento. I think they were in the Bay Area. I did meet cartoonists at first when we moved to when I moved out there. Justin was not a social guy at all. So any initiative to get things going, go to a party, go to Ron Turner's burrito party or whatever, I just said, do you mind if I go? Because we get an invitation. Sure, I don't care. He just didn't go out. So I did meet people initially when we lived in San Francisco. We were there for a while. And then I'd go back and Aileen and I would, Aileen lived not far away, maybe 40 minutes from Sacramento. Aileen and Robert, I'd go there a lot. It's in my journals over there, you can read all about it. She and I would take the weirdo pages in her car to Ron Turner's in the city, and it was always great because we both loved the Beatles. She saw them, I did too. And we'd listen to Sgt. Pepper's on the way to San Francisco in her car. What was I going to tell you? But no, I didn't. I met some of the cartoonists, and I went to San Diego Comic-Con in '88 because they gave me this award. Trina put together an award for Best New Female Cartoonist, and I was awarded that in the name of Dory Sita, which was a very loved autobiographical cartoonist who passed away earlier that year, or 87, 88. I felt terrible. I mean, I knew people. I would go to Turner's and I would meet people. I met Robert and all the guys, and that summer I went out in '82, I met Justin, I met Spain, I met Spiegelman when I lived in New York. So I got to know people, but when you're a working cartoonist, it's not a lot of time, at least when I hit the scene in the '80s. People were either had detached themselves from any kind of party scene just to do work, or in Justin's case, he was a sign painter, so he really wasn't making the scene as a cartoonist. I did go to the Twisted Sisters party in LA in '92. Somebody spiked the punch and I was awake for 2 days. There's pictures of me going, with a ponytail or something, I don't know. It was fun. Any encounters, people come to town. Dan Klaus came to town once, and I got some little drawings that they did for Julia and some different people. Chester Brown, I think, came through. But I have terrible memory. It's a good thing that things are written down. People come and go. We're not like a hangout bunch because we're committed to the drawing team. I love and respect everybody. Who influenced me? Like growing up, I read like Nancy, the Bush Miller Nancy strips. I absolutely loved this John Stanley Nancy summer camp issue with those buildings that had the crisscrosses. And I talk about that in one of my comics, but they were simple. Bushmiller could deliver a gag like boom. He had to do it in 3 panels. That's what I figured out about comics, and blending that with my painting sensibilities and storytelling. There's a timing involved. You got to go da-da, da-da. Oh, I have to finish at the bottom of the page. Boom, nail it. So there's that, finding that internal rhythm and how I'm going to get this. We'll look at Tommy's here, or any of these short pages. All right, let's look at dogs here. I'm looking for two. Okay, I have 1 page to get an idea across. Two. Okay, I'm calling for the dog. You can see the neighborhood. Okay, this stray showed up on our porch. We did everything we could to find her, but she likes to take off, is basically what I'm saying. So I'm asking the neighbors, have you seen her? No. And then it turns out that she always comes out of this place that neighborhood people call the Hole, strange wooded area. And I wonder why. I'm saying, why do you keep going down there? And it turns out there was a dog poker game. See? So there's a joke. Or there's a sense of completion if you do it right. And there's a lot of students that I have would say, well, it's to be continued. I said, no, you got to learn to nail that story, or you're going to tell that thing. It has to go find the rhythm and do that. And I guess I learned that from also listening to my parents. My dad and mom used to have these parties, and they'd be drunk, you know. That son of a bitch, he went in there, and that's I wouldn't hear the story. I would just hear the temperature and the tone, and be like, and then he went over there, oh God, Chuck, oh my God, Chuck, you really can tell a story. So I picked up on that there was a sense of something being told, and then it would lead to a crescendo, and then it would have a completion piece. I did stand-up comedy for a while, just before I started doing comics. My friends in Tennessee, when I was a painter, I'd stand on the bed. My roommate had a queen-size bed, and I'd stand up there, and I'd tell a story. And I could just see them all the way around. Elvis's mom! And I would launch into whatever thing, crazy. And they'd be laughing their asses off. And so I knew I had a knack for it. My favorite painter, Matisse. I love Matisse. Why? He had a way of showing object and space and making me wonder which was object, which was space. I still use those thoughts. So let's, go on to Fab Four Mania. These, I used to have these kind of glasses in the 60s. When I was 10 and 11, and I was like all the kids that age, I found the Beatles. Anybody have any Beatlemaniacs out there? Please show up. Here we are. So what this is this is the cover of this thing. This booklet I made. This is all cut out of magazines and construction paper. This was a story. I wrote down all my observations about seeing them in person. And Fab Four Mania is about the whole year before I got to this point. Because I felt like what I needed to do was, if you want to really love and enjoy the Beatles, how about meeting a Beatlemaniac and following me along with how exciting and intense it was? Because what I show in Fab Four Mania is the closed little world I lived in. I was an 8th grade girl going to a Catholic school living in northern Illinois, and nobody except my little girlfriends from school, nobody cared about the Beatles. The world was full of music, Frank Sinatra, Doris Day, jingles on the radio and all of this, but this little world that came to me out in the middle of nowhere, Fox Lake, Illinois, was the most precious thing. I felt like I found something of my own. And it helped me to become cognizant of the fact that I had agency. I was a person. And they were talking to me. They were telling me that I was worthy of love. Their love. What? My brothers told me I was stupid and ugly, and my sister would tell me to shut up, but these guys got it. They liked me. So I listened and collected everything I could, babysitting money, bought all this stuff. This was our official candy of the time. The Sweet Tarts came in that gold pack. We used to make gum chains. We'd sit in school and we would write. We would write Beatles over and over and over until the nuns would confiscate these pages. This right here, that's 100 and how many times? 101 times Beatles was written into that little postage stamp here. Crazy. So what I did was, all right, a bunch of people started to, all this traveling across to Indiana. Well, all those people got sick and died. And it was heavy and sad. And going through the stuff, I came across this box of stuff I'd collected all those years, Beatles stuff, and I just needed a jolt of joy. I had had so much sadness. And going through there and recognizing that there was a girl who had over the top, single-minded, powerful energy and joyfulness. I really wanted to capture that. So I wanted to live in that world. It started out as a blog, but then my friend Linda said, why would you put it up for free? It's content, you should try to get paid for it. I was like, you're right. And so I decided to stop having it be a blog. These were pages that I would show on the blog. But I had to end up shifting that into drawings, more of drawings. Are they over here? Yeah, I don't have any actual drawings. Because what I had to do is assemble, look here, put that camera here. See this Some 8th grade memories? It's got, this book was filled with stuff like my grade cards and all these little things like that. That's the infamous picture that I stole, if you read the book, from my brother's friend, and I sat on it when I saw them when he first came on the Ed Sullivan Show. But I made this spazzy button myself. Look at that, my own lettering. What's not here, but that was here the night of the opening, I actually had made instruments out of like brown paper that were scaled to what I thought was the exact scale of the instruments, so that they could walk in my room and their instruments would be there. And Rico could pick up his drum and start playing, and Paul could play his Hofner bass, and so on. You know, I was fully committed. So over here it shows. This is shortened, but it goes all the way across. But this is the entire book. So this here explains the process of taking fragments of ideas. Here was the idea that I know I wanted a red cover and it needed to be saying that. And like this is a page I had to make for the book, the table of contents. And you see it's, every one of these has a title. Every few days I would write things in my journal over there. I had stuff. I had to figure out, it turns out that every single Beatles song that they made from when they started up and through the time I saw them, I had enough chapters that I could name them after these songs. Wow. And then this is the book in two lines. So you go along like this. See, this happened February 27th. This would happen. They were dated February 28th was Beatles 65 Christmas page. This was radio list and so on. So this is the kind of the map layout. Then for the show, of course, I had to make, I had these old 78s, and I had to make these John Paul, George and Ringo thingies. I made a lot of fluff for the show, like this thing. Knock them out. So what's this thing? What's this thing? It's the kettle of inspiration, of course. When it came time, we were going to have an exhibit. I thought, okay, how am I going to get these people, Billy Ireland, to understand what's in my mind? There's so much shit here. I can't describe it to them. So we were having a Zoom meeting the next day. And Julia and I had gone through and selected, well, Mom, you should show this, you should show that. And, okay. How am I going to explain this? So, you know that movie Close Encounters? And the guy goes, and he builds this model of this Potato Mountain or wherever it was. Well, I had a similar thing happen that I just felt this, okay, they complain about this hole in the middle of the gallery. How about if we build something around that pole? How about, well, I can't put an ink bottle because that would mean the top, and I remembered that a gift that Aileen had given me years ago. It was a kettle. It's in Married to Comics. There's a part where I'm pouring some tea for Robert, and I tell him this is a gift from Aileen, and he kind of loses it because he had just lost her. I know how that feels. I liked that pot because it was squishy. It wasn't a round pot. And we needed room. So I got some boxes like pasta and tea and all that stuff, and I started taping it together and fixing it, and realized what I need to go here was the kettle of inspiration. Let's go over here. Aren't you inspired? Look up here. Oh, 10 points. What's that? 10 points in the steam. Oh my goodness. This is a kettle. It's a kettle. It's the kettle of inspiration. I made a floral bouquet for it. Oh, you should have seen my house before the show. It was just filled with fluff because I added all this florals. I had to do all this stuff in here, even these nice curtains. But if you come in here, the question is, remember, this used to be a pasta box. This size, it's over there. It's sitting over there, the little model. See it over there? Let's go look at the model real quick. That's the model I made in the house. Then I made a floor plan, an inch to a foot of this gallery space. I'm figuring it out how we're going to show this. So that people could walk in and go, oh, what's this? What is this place? Crazy. Oh, I guess, oh, what's this? Tyler's clutter. Because I'm a clutter bug. And I got a lot of it. Would you like to look at Justin's pencil sharpener? It's like a paint can filled with cement so that his pencil sharpener thing wouldn't jump around. There's a picture of my daughter. There's the old Fox Lake subdivision garbage can thing. This, when my sister had cancer, I cut off my hair in solidarity. There it is. And so on. It's just filled with whatever. And people are asked, what inspires you? And you write, you inspire me. And then you go, okay, I'm gonna put that right there. Boom. And this is filled. Look at how many of these we've had. It's a very popular element. There's even a copy of The Incredible Journey. I forgot I had that in a U.S. flag, one of Dad's flags. My dad made this light thing, cookie. How about this? I found this. Oh, you can't take it down. It's fixed in there. But it's a ball jar with, it says Rhonda on it. It's got a wig. I like people being able to interact and be a part of anything that I do, enjoying reading it, having a connection, an emotional connection. So that's why we're going to come over here to look at the last area. This is kind of where I live currently. Here is my drawing table that my friend Jack Wu made for me when I lived in California. Take a look at that. Some stuff here, bottles of ink. more bottles. A lot of this is left up. Yeah, this is from Soldier's Heart. These bottles have, I mixed 53 colors of ink for Soldier's Heart, 53 separate colors, and I named them. So this one, you know, I'd have to figure out ways to label them and put them in. I made charts, I made graphics, so I knew what colors I had and what I could work with. Here's some of my French curves that I used a lot of in Soldier's Heart. I've drawn everything on this since the days I was drawing on a plank when I first came to Ohio. Had no money. I drew on a board on some cement blocks. Still don't have much money, but at least I have a drawing. You know, you use your pens, you dip it in the ink. Oh, look, somebody left this. Oh my God. Somebody left this open. Oh, this pen's not for this world. This is terrible. That's why you go like this, you wipe it off. I do everything. Draw it. Yeah, I draw it. I'll draw the picture pretty much. And then I will there's the kettle. Then I'll ink it, either with a brush or I've made brushes before out of different things. This is, okay, Jane Austen people, pay attention. When you watch old movies, a lot of times they'll go like this. They'll take a feather, and they'll go, oh, shall write a letter to my loved one. And they take it like this, and they dip it into the bottle, and they start to write, but that's incorrect. What you have to do is you feel up in here for the sweet spot. The point of the pen is up in here somewhere. And what you do is you pull all of this off. And then you take your knife, which I don't have here because we're safety minded, but you would take this and you would cut your point. Here's what you end up with. You have a point, and then you cut that feather off and you stick it back into here for the counterweight. This is the correct way to make a feather pen. Not that. Oh, don't have a fit, people. I did that myself. Okay, so some of these pens are, I keep them around because occasionally I show people how to make real pens. Some of them, let's see, this is correct. And I've drawn with these. I've drawn with sticks. I've drawn with these pens over here. These are made out of my dog's tufts of fur, some of them. There's one of those feather pens. That one there, the one that has the black end, it goes like that. That's actually stuck out of a pillow, my down pillow. It stuck me in the face, and I used it as part of the comics. Oh, here it is. I can't sleep one night. I'm making these brushes. There they are. I'm so tired. I was tired last night too. I didn't get to bed at all. I only had about 2 hours sleep. That drive from Cincinnati to Columbus is terrible. They call it hell is real, and it's true, especially if you haven't slept. Face plant! Ah! So I turned it into that brush, and then it goes off and it starts the next chapter. There's 2. See, this is the donor. This is the fur donor. All of that brush stuff comes from her fur. And all of these, boom, this is huge. The drawing itself is, what, about like this? Look, they blew that up. But this is the farmhouse. Why is there a farmhouse? You'll find out in the second part of Ephemerata. why we got a farmhouse. This is me, the cover of the book that's out now, Ephemerata, Shaping the Exquisite Nature of Grief. The title is up here. I'm holding a flower pot similar to what Grant Wood did with, there's a Grant Wood painting called Woman with Plants. I love that picture because he's from Iowa, and I love that Midwest sensibility. But instead I used the Mad Magazine Impossible Trident just because it's comics. But these here, they grow out there at the farm. And this is going to be the second book. It's called Verdante, The Ephemerata Goes Home. And this is Justin. The second part of the Ephemerata story is skewed towards what happened to him. I taught myself the gold leaf to make that. I'm so proud. Look, I taught myself the gold leaf to make that. Why did I have to teach myself? My husband was a gold leaf master, but I never took the time to learn from him, as if he would have taught me anyways, because I don't know. He's a sign painter, master sign painter. We never got around to that. But the book, this is from the Ephemerata, which is out now. The book is 200 and something pages, 235 pages. These were my farm glasses going out to the farm, which had to change into this because we're back to bright. It is so big out there. The farm, I have to protect my eyes now. It is so big, and the skies and the nature and okay, I don't know how to talk about this. We have this farm because I'll go ahead and tell you. The zoo said they were going to buy our house. And so we had to look for something else, another place to live. And when I went out there, it's like, stop the car. It was like that movie with Natalie Wood as a little kid, the Santa Claus movie. What was that movie? Stop the
Miracle
on 34th Street. And at the end, the little girl says, stop, I believe in Santa Claus, I believe in, she didn't really believe, and then she says, stop the car. I said, Justin, stop the car. I got up and I went, this is it. I need to live here because this will help me tell this story. There was something about the physical space that connected me with this sense of, like I got out and I was right here, standing right there, and I was going, and I called it the launch pad. The launch pad plays an enormous part in the second book. It's a miraculous place. It's an energy field. And a lot of the motifs that you see here, these grow out on trees at the farm. These needles, the other honey locust things. And so I was influenced by that sense of space, the largesse of cattle. Where's the cows? There's cattle that are constantly they're constantly making this noise. But I had this vision, and they became six legs, and you'll have to read the book to understand. This is the Griefville map. This place I knew. I did all of this after I finished being joyful about the Beatles. I allowed myself to feel sad and grieve, and got into this book. So it tells the story of the mourner, what happens after loss, and how that feels, and what you do with that. And so that map started one evening, felt like I had to draw it, and I did not stop again like that thing. Once I'm inspired, I started up there and went all the way through till I finished. And I had written out the lexicon, all the language of everything I needed to know to get me through this time that I did not quite understand. Our culture and our society does not mourn well. We don't know what to do with it unless you're hard, fast connected to a church. We don't know. It's a different time. So I had to find a language that made sense to me, that I could wrap my mind around and use it to communicate. So, Caitlin has the questions, right?
Yes, somebody asked, is there a species of bird that makes the best pens?
If you're lucky to find these feathers that I have mostly are from turkeys, and sometimes you can get what are those called? Vultures? Just what you can find. I mean, I'm not out looking for chickens so I can get feathers, but the thing about it is you need to get the strength of this part, I don't know what it's called, and just feel for the point. Then you cut that. This is like there's some kind of material back in there. You just have to take you'll feel it. Because if you use pens at all, like I use pens, they have a certain amount of flexibility in the tip. So you kind of feel for that same sense of flexibility in the tip. It's in the middle of the feather. Maybe I should do a tutorial specifically on that at some point. Other questions? Then what did I forget to talk about?
Everyone's just saying how wowed they are by this exhibit and thanking Carol and the Billie Ireland. Everyone's loving it.
I don't know what else to say.
Well, we're at about an hour and a half now. So,
yeah. Time to eat. Time for y'all to go eat.
Why don't we say, if you're in the Ohio area and you want to join us today in person, Carol's going to be doing a book release party from 5:30 to 7 p.m. today at the Billie Ireland. And her dog is here, currently in my office, and we're going to have a open house display in our reading room of original art by Justin Green from our collection.
Yes, Justin's work. Yes, we love Justin. Okay, two more pair left. I got it covered. We're gonna go out here. We're gonna put this on Rose's chair. I did a comic strip about Rose over there. That's her chair. And we're gonna go out here. You ready? These are my Hollywood sunglasses. Woohoo! Because if you haven't seen Married to Comics yet, somebody did a documentary. This guy named John Kinhart, he's awesome. He did a documentary and came to our house, and the documentary starts where I'm pointing out this painting I did, where I talk about how there was an exhibit back in, I don't even remember, 2005 or 4 or 5 or something like that, that was curated in LA.
Yeah, the Hammer Museum.
Yeah, and it was all male cartoonists, called Masters of American Comics. And when I asked Art Spiegelman, how come there were no women in the show? He said, there weren't women that had a large enough body of work to have them included. I was like, what? I was thinking, what? And I was thinking about, by 2005, I had done half the work in that gallery. So it's like, I had to do a painting every summer. I'm allergic to oil paint. I do a portrait or a landscape or a still life. So it was time to do a portrait. I'm gonna do an iconic portrait. I just read the biography of Queen Elizabeth I, who said, in her statement when she put the powder on her face and she said, you're gonna marry somebody? She said, I am married to England. Which was her way of saying, I made my commitment to be the iconic image of the icon for who we will be, this England. So I thought about that and I thought, well, I'm married to comics in so many ways. I mean, I'm married to Justin Green, there's that. But I'm also committed, like in college, you declare your major, I'm going to be a PE major, or whatever you're going to do, and then that's your life. Well, at a certain point, early on, I knew I was a storyteller, and I knew I was doing sequence. And it turned out that that's what comics is. So I made this portrait. This is, you know, my muse, the tools of the trade. I'm looking at the unfinished work and not celebrating that which is finished. Cardinals meet for life, so it's true. I'm committed. These are forget-me-nots, and like all good paintings, there's a little bare feet, and you can see all the nails and broken material I've had to crawl across. And finally, there are three rocks from Ernie Bushmiller. Huh? Show the pen. Yeah, there's Ernie Bushmiller with the cuss cross. That's Justin's from the Saw Church of Profanity. And then here's the crown. It's an ink bottle. It's dedicated to women who draw. 2006. Let it be said that I've done my work, but I still have plenty left to do. So that was my Hollywood sunglasses. It's from Married to Comics, the movie. Go see it. And currently today I sport these. So now I'm going to say, you'll never catch me without a flashy pair of glasses. Get back to work doing whatever you're doing. Still got maps available for sale. And we'll see you soon. I can't get off Facebook right away, people. People are crying out there, oh, Tony, I can't leave. Okay, I won't for a while.
Can we get a shot of the shoes first before we go?
Justin's rigger. It's one of his riggers from sign painting. And there's my pencil. Can you see it?
Perfect. Thank you, Carol. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in.
Goodbye, all of you. I love you so much.